out there in television land.
So I'm here with the legendary inker and artist and Disney designer. I know that about you. How long were you doing Disney design work? Mr. Lawyer?
21 and a half years.
21 and a half years. So you left comics and went into the design work?
I was feeling burnt out with Jack. Jack understood, and Russ Manning asked me if I wanted to ink Tarzan and Star Wars strips that he just taken on. And after a few weeks like that, he never delivered the work that paid me what I needed each week. And I happened to at the same time get a call from Sparky Moore, Richard Moore, who was one of my mentors, and he said, Disney's looking for artists for their strip division.
So he was a mainstay with the animation department, right, Sparky? And he did comic book work too.
He did tons of comic book work for Western, for Gold Key.
Yeah, like uncredited stuff, so people don't really know his name. But I do know his name because I've been doing this 30 years.
But Sparky was such a great guy. He gave me the best advice of anyone in my whole life. You'll get your first job on your ability. Every job after that is your dependability.
Right.
And until the comic shops took such dominance in the distribution of comics, and people started saying, well, I'm going to be late with the book, and they said, okay, we just won't print it then, you know. But I'm the only guy that said something nice about Vince Coletta in his book that Tomorrow's published. He said he lived by that mantra. Whether we liked what he did or not, if he was given a book on Thursday and said we'd love to have it on Tuesday, they had it Monday night.
Yeah, but there's this thought out there that he wouldn't do all the pencils that Jack laid down, and that's where his bad reputation comes from. Did you ever erase a line of art that
Nope.
Jack?
Yeah,
of course
I never
not.
left out
because
one.
you were subcontracted by Jack at that time, and you were working for Jack, right?
The checks came from DC, but I was working for Jack.
Jack, yeah, he wrangled or produced the books, and you and Bruce Berry, right?
Well, when I told Jack that I'm working too hard, I went with my family on a trip into the high Sierras. We hiked up to the top of Mount Whitney. I've got a picture of me sitting on the plaque, freezing to death. And I said, I'm working too damn hard. So
5 books a month?
Well, it was like ink 3 pages a day, letter and border and circle balloons, a whole book in 2 days. Wow. And that was almost 7 days a week.
Because Jack was pumping out 5 books a month.
Yeah, and there's the story I've heard from several people that Joe Sinnott and Giacoya used to talk about how the hell does that lawyer kid do 3 pages a day? I didn't know any better. It was the only way I could keep up with Jack. And you know that they paid me less money than they paid Coletta.
And you were doing lettering as well?
Yeah.
You weren't getting paid for lettering?
Oh, $2 a page for lettering.
Oh my God. What is it, 72, 73?
Actually, it was 71.
71?
Late 70 or early. I mean, I started working with Jack in late 68 or late summer. But I worked with his famous God's Portfolio.
Oh, the God's Portfolio.
I worked with his Toys for Tots posters. Yeah. Everything he did
I
for
sold
Marvel
the first
Mania
one.
from that point on.
I sold it and bought and sold the first one. Toys for Tots.
And so when I say I worked with Jack for 10 years, they say the comic books were only out 8 years. I said, well, I didn't say I only did the comic books for 8 years. I inked for Jack for 10 years. See, Jack.
How did you meet him?
My first wife and kids were AAU competitive swimmers. They were workout every night.
One of my sons was.
I worked until 5 o'clock, then I'm walking from my studio, which I had built at the back of the garage, to the house and hear the phone ringing in the kitchen. I run into the kitchen, I go, hello? And this voice is, Mike Ryer, this is Jack Kirby. Alex Toth says you're a pretty good inker. That's how it started.
Did he have a cigar in his mouth when he was talking to you?
On the phone, I don't know. But the next day, I went to his house where they were temporarily living in one of the cities in Orange County before they settled on their permanent home. And he said, I want you to ink this, and it was his biography page where he's sitting at the board and all the characters are for Marvel Mania.
Yeah.
And I said, okay, I'll have it for you tomorrow. He said, no, just sit here at my board and do it.
He wanted to see you work.
He wanted to know that there was nobody else's hand involved, how I worked under pressure. We stopped halfway through and had homemade sandwiches that Roz made for us, and then went back and finished it. And obviously he was pleased because now he had found an inker. And then when he saw re-lettering stuff, he had an inker and a letterer on the
Did you letter this one as well?
Yeah. And so he was ready to leave Marvel and go with the full package. Writing, drawing.
Oh yeah, that was the deal offered, the DC offered him, right?
And he called me from LAX.
Full creative.
He called me from LAX and he says, I'm on the way to New York. I can't tell you now, but there's a big change coming. Less than a week later, I got a call and he says, Mike, he says, I've left Marvel and I'm going to DC. You were part of the deal, but they wouldn't take you. So we apologize for that.
So that's why we had Bruce B.B. Barry.
No, they came after me.
Oh no, the Coletta.
It was Coletta.
Yeah, first.
And Coletta was getting $18 a page to ink. You know how much they paid me?
10?
15. So I had to do 3 pages a day to make $45. It was less money than I got working at Western Publishing in the Gold Key comic.
Were you doing pencils there?
I did pencils, writing, inking, lettering. Their number one editor wanted me to do nothing but ink and letter. And I wanted to pencil one of the head of our superhero comic books. So I went to Mike Aarons and Sparky Moore, who always drew the books, and I inked the letter. I said, guys, I've asked Chase if I can produce this book for him. Take care of it. Get the artists and stuff. He said, yeah, he says, I'd like to break from it. So I went to Mike and Sparky, and they said, yeah, we'll say we drew it. So I drew the book, inked it, I drew it, penciled it, inked it, lettered it, and he thought,
did you get paid 3 times?
No, but I was paid for the penciling and the inking and the lettering.
Yeah, 3 times.
Well, money went to Mike and Sparky, and then they saw that I got it. Because I think till the day he died, he probably thought that book was drawn by me.
Well, that's why we lost Joe Sinnott to, when he left FF, he went to the Pope story. Who was that? The Pope? The company that Joe Sinnott went to for a couple of years because he was getting pencils, inks, money, and he was making double the money. So that's why
the first Joe Sinnott I ever saw, in our small town, we had a Buster Brown shoe store.
Oh, yeah.
And in the 40s, early 50s, they had free comic books.
Right.
And I saw Joe Sinnott's work for the first time. And the reason it grabbed me at the time is because a third of it was swiped from Alex Freeman.
Oh, interesting. So what subject matter was that? Because I had Buster Brown. My mom used to take me to
what I
Buster
had at one time, it was a science fiction story.
Yeah, they were kind of generic. And Western, and
so they also had every issue had a Mowgli the Jungle Boy story,
Mowgli, yeah.
which was drawn by Neil O'Keefe, who was doing the Dick's Adventures of Sunday Comics.
So you're 83 years old.
Yeah.
And you remember what you were doing in 1950, whatever.
Probably.
That's awesome.
I can't remember. Well, I can't remember what I had for breakfast yesterday.
Okay.
But sometimes
the details of how your career started and became a mainstay in this business, influenced this whole 70s Kirby aesthetic. Jack wasn't Jack Kirby until Joe Sinnott came on, and we learned how effing great he was. I did an interview with Joe, and Joe said, "Yeah, but I embellished it."
Well, you have probably heard this, but people have asked me, what is the difference between Joe Sinnott and Mike Royer? And I say, you have to understand the dichotomy of the motion picture industry in the golden age. Joe Sinnott inked Jack Kirby, MGM.
Yeah.
Mike Royer inked Jack Kirby, Warner Brothers.
Republic Pictures, maybe. right, that's an awesome way to end it. Thank you for this time and knowledge and your experience. I really appreciate it. I feel like I got something done today in life by talking to Mike Royer, 83-year-old legendary comic book artist, creator.
Stuck between my ears at 32.
Yeah, and he signed this beautiful page that he worked on, and hopefully he got paid at least 2 times for inks and letters. So I'm Anthony with Anthony's Comic Book Art, here with the legend Mike Royer.